out on the streets? What about my partners doing time? What about this harassment from the police? What about my young thugs dying? What about my niggas still on the streets? What about my partners doing time? What about this harassment from the police? What about my young thugs dying?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and dogs, fishes and the birds, this is Auditory Osmosis, episode 15, with your host, Ether Hawkins, and Mr.
Nick Ritter is here. Our hearts are heavy tonight. We have to explain this. We all know I'm from Texas, and we know a bunch of shit's going on right now, and we have to talk about this tonight. Sorry to somber you up real quick. What about us? You know, what about the harassment from the police? What about the young thugs dying? You know, well, dude, what is happening?
What on earth is happening?
We've literally been talking about this for 15 episodes now, and
here's the thing about the news. It's moving so quickly that, okay, normally you have the image of a snowball and a news story snowballs. At this point, there's so many snowballs, I'd like to go with just a different metaphor. It's more like sand falling into, it's quicksand, it's a quickening. If you can imagine the news stories being little pebbles falling into the hole of the ether. I am overwhelmed. Like, I was looking over our last podcast, and I realized we'd have to broadcast at least every 12 hours to keep up with the pace of the news happening.
It's obsolete.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how an artist could handle this type of stuff. How do you sit down and reflect and digest some of this this gravitas?
I literally had to take 10 minutes today, and I walked outside. I've been somber all day. You know, I honestly knew one of the police officers that was shot. I didn't know another one, but I know people that know the other one, or one of the other ones, I should say. And you know, Dallas PD, thank God for them, because they did a damn good job. Dallas SWAT includes Irving Police Department, or Irving SWAT, because they're kind of a big gang, or they're a group. They come together. But you know, I read an article. It said during the protests, and right when the shots started happening, the protesters started running. But there was two types of people that ran towards the shots. Okay, it was Dallas Police Department, and it was the media. Okay, and the media had, they wouldn't get too close. But then you see all these police officers from Dallas, and they're organizing, and they're, they know they're getting shot at, and they know these people, which we'll get into later about these people, they know that people are getting shot, and what do? They run towards it. They keep going. They fucking keep fighting,
in the media, in the absence of love, we splatter one another with blood, and the media comes to cover the buzz.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, that's what they do. They instantly they smell blood, and then they go and cover it. But the people, the heroes, the real heroes that face that danger, that's just incredible. But if you don't mind, can we back it up to where this story? So we left off with James Comey saying Hillary Clinton's fine, blah blah blah, and then the next 48 hours we had.
We'll say 24 hours. He was getting grilled.
In Louisiana, I believe, an officer killed an unarmed black man. Something about the body camera, and then the surveillance camera at the convenience store documented the incident. That went viral. The Black Lives Matter group. And when we were talking...
Falcon Heights, Minnesota.
Well, and then that happened, too, in the same 24-hour period. And that was... we're in this new age where the movies and the real-time streaming they can seem very similar. When I first saw that woman live stream her fiance, her husband to be, shot by a St. Paul police officer, I thought, this is a psychodrama being played out live. Like, no other time and place in human history could we have a situation where something like that occurs and it is instantly being streamed to everybody all at once.
So instantly that I had a friend in Falcon Heights videotaping it from across the street, and then 2 seconds later, my next pop-up on my internet, well, we won't even say what we'll say Mozilla Firefox. So the next pop-up was her live streaming of him, basically dying in the car. And
it's so violent and in your face. It's the ultimate tool to get an emotional reaction. And I'm saying this is real, but we have no time to digest and reflect. This news is streaming and feeding us so quickly that we either gobble it up or we spit it out. We have no time.
This is where the snowball comes in. But the fact that it's so hard to just spit out right now. It's just so much shit to cover. So then there's two different sides that are being pulled right now. There's, these people were all suspects, or they all were armed, or they all, all this shit. Well, then you see the other side. Well, they showed a video of the officer that shot him wearing a cowboy hat and cowboy clothes. He was an Asian officer, and he was wearing like cowboy clothing with two flags behind him. People say this may have been cropped or superimposed on a video, but it's him doing a speech in front of a flag of a swastika, or the Nazi flag, and then a flag of the American flag also behind him, talking bad about black people, African Americans, just talking shit. Like,
well, you remember what I said last podcast? I said the three things, the divide and conquer. We have the gender issue that is causing confusion,
right,
the race issue causing confusion, and the politically correct language, and the political circus in general. They're all in this triad of confusion for the masses.
Right.
And this is evidence that we are now in a real global village. When somebody can scream on one side of the planet and others can hear it instantly. We're in this village now, and we have to learn to get along instead of reacting. We cannot become reactive puppets.
No, and that's what they're capitalizing on. And I have views. I have terrible views, and then I have enlightened views. But all I can see right now is those
the
negative,
dark and the light.
Well, it's the negative views, is the other side of what people aren't saying, and the what is being covered up, I feel, and what shit is really going on out there, and what is happening. You know what I mean? Like,
is this festering, this cultural hate, this cultural balkanization? Is it part of a magic show for the political circus? Is it the magician waving his hand over here saying, look how terrible things are, and then you have the political circus over here saying, yeah, but we can fix it?
It's completely feeding into Obama's what's the word, to his motive. It's exactly what he wanted the whole time he's been in office, and he's finally getting everything he wants. And I don't know if it's because he or somebody is staging it, or if it's just perfectly happening in time for him to capitalize on it.
Well, and when we talk about stagecraft, we're not going to agree with people going, everything's a false flag, everything's deception. No, it's not a pre-planned. The best kind of stagecraft is reality television, and right. I mean pure reality television.
Literally, officers were killed, or people have been killed, and I hate to say it, and I hate to
Well, you allow real role players to engage in the type of behavior you want to see, and then you use their behavior and you broadcast it. That's what the new stagecraft is. You allow the roles to play out, and all you have to do is make a video for the reaction, for everybody to suck it in.
Right. And most of the time it's the side that everybody can see, not the side that everybody should see, but the one that everybody can. So they capitalize on the connotation. Oh, I shouldn't say it because that's like a meaning, a literal meaning of a word, or a thought of a word, or what you think words.
Well, let me ask you this. Who can interpret a news story immediately? Who has the budget to stream 24/7 and give you a perspective 24/7?
Mainstream media.
Right. They're the only ones who actually have a budget for this, and they have people on payrolls to fly everywhere and cover this. So you have the 24-hour news stations. They can interpret the story for everybody else immediately, where if the news moves so fast, citizen journalists, they have a hard time keeping up, because we know that an information abundance creates apathy. People shut down when they're overwhelmed.
And I don't know how many times this happened to me today, but it's true. Everybody had these ideas and these thoughts and what was going on around them, but it's all the same thought, because everybody's seeing things one way, the way that they want you to see them. It's not about race. It's not about gun control. It's about manipulation.
Well, let me put it this way, since I'm sure some of the listeners watch Game of Thrones. I do not watch Game of Thrones. I know Mr. Ritter is a fan of it. Many people enjoy the series.
Oh,
in fact,
sure.
I'm going to pick it up eventually. It looks fantastic. But the metaphor I want to use for people who envision this, the Black Lives Matter folks are like a character. They're like a camp. They're like a sports team. They have an allegiance. They have a perspective. They're like a character in Game of Thrones. And then you have the cops. They're a different character in Game of Thrones. Then you have the politicians. They're a character in Game of Thrones. Well, you know how all the characters... I asked you once, what's so great about Game of Thrones? You said you get to experience the perspective of each character, and you get to decide for yourself what is right and wrong about those characters and situations. And sometimes it creates a gray area, because life can be gray sometimes. It can also be black and white. Well, think about the characters going through in the show a television, and there's a mainstream media or a screen that tells you about the characters. And instead of the viewer getting to know the characters, you only learn about the characters through this television within a television.
Right. That's
the metaphor I'm going with. The politicians and the Black Lives Matter folks and the cops, they're real people with real perspectives, and they're humans, and we cannot strip them of their humanity. But when they get filtered through the media, they become a psychodrama. And then they play off of each other through the screen without ever knowing who each other really are. And they never get to know or develop an intimate relationship. They never get to understand each other. And they become role players in the psychodrama of life.
Yeah. It's completely true. Basically on the show, this is on Game of Thrones, when people see the plays that are put on by, I don't know who they're put on by, but there's plays in the show if you watch the show, but they're only showing, it's basically these people watching the TV only seeing the one side that city or that civilization or that king or queen wants you to see. It's not about everything that it's not about letting everybody think of what's going on. They're seeing it, so they believe it.
Right. And the purpose in a paradigm, any paradigm, it's to have a conversation without you thinking. You get 2 points. That's why when you go on, turn on CNN, they have, what do they have? They have somebody from the right, someone from the left. They give you the paradigm So you get 2 points of view. But at the same time, they're not asking you to give your own point of view. They just want those two people, those characterizations of the left and the right, to give you the perspective of the left and the right without having you, the viewer, actually question what the left and right is. So when something like that lady streaming her husband or husband to be, when I can't believe that was just live streamed on Facebook. Like, I still am flabbergasted by where we are in the world of, I guess, social media. But when she comes through that screen, you don't know her, you don't know him, you don't know that cop. So any judgment you make is going to be deduced from the evidence available. But yet we're having reactions based off of our judgments, and our reactions are not complete. They're irrational. We're jumping to conclusions. We don't even know those people. And this is the whole thing about the tribal, the global village. We are reacting to things we see through a screen, but the things we're seeing, we actually do not understand.
Right. Well, there's so much shit to process that they just keep giving you more information that you can't process it. You're just taking it in.
And so let's say the folks that ambushed the police, they were motivated by this happening that had nothing to do with them, but they felt involved because of the current media, the current social media. What do you think ISIS uses to recruit people? Social media. What do you think Black Lives Matter uses to tell everybody their message? Social media. How do politicians connect to voters? Social media. The new filter systems are making us more connected, but more ignorant of each other.
Mm-hmm.
We don't understand each other because we're trying to interpret someone's point of view through such a narrow tunnel. We see it through the screen, we react, and here we are. This is where we are. That's why the news is moving so quickly. We can throw it up onto the screen, and we have no time to reflect and digest. So instead of those guys waiting a little bit to cool down and not be so motivated by the heat of the moment, what did they do? They went out and ambushed cops and killed innocent people.
Can we talk about who we think they are?
We can. And before we do that, I just want to say that the way the news is moving lately, would you say that people are numbed by this?
I think
because there's so many things: the Orlando shooting, Hillary Clinton's FBI probe, the police shootings, the unarmed black men being shot, natural disasters. It's all in your face, moving so quickly.
Well, besides the natural disasters, I think it is very numbing, and I think it is it's a sensory overload because you start to feel for everybody that you see, right?
Or you don't feel at all, and you become a nihilistic little shithead.
Oh no, you felt something in some way. So regardless if it's you felt really positive for what was happening or really negative, there's still a paradigm there. You know, there's still you still have to see it for what it is. This is what's going on. You have to see it for what it is. You can't just look at it and I mean, if you enjoy what you're seeing and you're fucked up, and
they're disconnected from the human experience.
That's not what we need. We don't need those fuckers here. We don't need those people on this fucking planet. Sorry.
And mind you, when I say psychodrama, I don't mean psychopathic or psychopathy. I mean psychological drama.
Right. Mental drama. It gets in your head. It changes ways of thinking. It gets perspective out there, and you stick to that perspective rather than your own.
And to capitalize on, you know why, if you go on YouTube, some of the popular doomsday culture, the fear-mongering, I cannot believe that these sheltered, overprivileged, ignorant kids, or even some are perpetual adolescent adults. They really hope for some type of collapse because they're lazy and they're living unfulfilled lives. So when they see this type of disaster, it excites them, it moves them, because they sit in front of a TV all day and they have nothing better to do than sit and mope and hope somebody else's day is ruined, and so they can have the misery loves company scenario play out, and I hope the world burns, and then they get all hyped up. And I hate that. I cannot understand why these sheltered, privileged kids and adults too would ever see something like this and hope that the world burns and they get off on something like this. It's like grow up and get out of the house and really experience what life is.
I've had somebody say this is ignorance, okay? And I don't like the word ignorant. I feel it's misinformed or uninformed. So, but they don't want to take the time to inform themselves or see other viewpoints or put themselves in somebody else's shoes. They only care about what they see and what words are written in front of them, and it's like it's clickbait basically. But it's, you know what I mean?
Well, and also violence is a symptom of ignorance, and people to become educated need teachers.
Well, that's the key, is like everybody needs to continue to learn. Everybody needs to know, and I want to put myself in the people's shoes that it's so hard to see things from that closed-minded perspective. It's hard for me to not be able to build on to not be able to see a positive thing from what all the negative bullshit that's going on. I have to see the positive side because that's who I am. And that's what I want to do to everybody else, is I have to show them something positive from all this negative bullshit that's going on around them.
Well, life is far too precious and short. I mean,
exactly.
Every time I look in the mirror and I look into the little beady black holes that my eyes have,
your retinas,
I always think about how easy I have it, and how maybe 1,000 years ago one of my ancestors was in a life or death situation, and hypothetically, if he would have died in that life or death situation and he didn't triumph over his environment and take control of what was going on, I wouldn't be here today.
Right.
And humanity, they have to think about that collectively. They have to start thinking about all the struggles in the past, and they have to start learning from those struggles, and then teaching younger generations how to deal with and conquer problems that arise in the future.
Right.
We are allowing the ignorant people of this world to engage in violent acts, and one can argue, well, it's population control. There's too many of us. You got to kill the bad eggs. Well, no. See, I would rather see us strengthen the bad eggs to make the whole of the population a better, stronger breed of people. And I'm not talking about race or anything. I'm saying the human species should look at the bottom tier of civilization as a representation of the failure of a teacher. Somebody at the top needs to teach the bottom tier how to behave, and it's a representation of their failure to teach if you have violent, ignorant masses on the bottom. You don't allow them to carry on in their dark Plato cave mind, an abyss of stupidity. You have to teach them, shatter their walls of perception, and get them out into the light and better the human race.
Right. We have to strive for better. We have to strive for information. We have to strive for teaching ourselves. If we don't have that teacher we can't rely on, we have to know that there's better things out there than this negative bullshit.
Well, why do we always want to dehumanize somebody who is either a victim of a crime or commits a crime? You know what I would like to do?
Because it's the polarity that we're shown on Fox News. You know what I mean?
Right. And I got two things. One, going back to the television being, it's moving so quickly with all of its bad news that ruins your day. And it paints these terrible pictures. Well, back when advertising was, I guess, a child, they found out that if they played terrible news stories followed by corporate commercials for Advil or ibuprofen or some type of medication, the sales would go up because people would get into a mind state where the world's bad, but then look at the world's not so bad. I can get this pill and everything will be better. Corporations found out that basic psychology responds to trauma-based mind control. This goes way back anyways, like to the Nazi concentration camps. But I almost feel like we are facilitating or unknowingly facilitating. I'm not saying television is designed to do this, but right now we are facilitating a trauma-based mind control system where the news is moving so fast that it not only numbs the viewer, but it also mentally destabilizes their outlook on life, so they can be they become more malleable for mental programming, if you will. It's trauma-based mind control on a grand scale through the screen.
Yeah.
And you can now participate in it through social media. You're now a participant, or you're not necessarily, like I say, we have no physical touch with these other humans that we see through the screen. So once again, it's like we're acting as if we do have a touch. So through the social media, we pretend to participate. I don't know. I don't know what to really think of it. It's...
we have to talk about this. Okay, we're going back to who the people were that the Dallas Police Department had to deal with.
Right. I mean, these guys look professional.
They were absolutely professional. And I was watching Fox News for about 20 minutes today, and I couldn't even stand in the same room because they were pitching one fucking side, and that side was, oh, they went into the guy that got blown up because they did some sort of not necessarily a drone, but a robotic bomb to kill him or whatever, supposedly, right? We don't know this really happened, but anyway, so they killed this guy, and then they raid his house, and he had books on how to shoot like a military person, and how to what is called as a serpentine walk. So if you've ever seen the videos of, or if you saw the videos of the guy,
he was going in and out of columns, right? He was like a slalom.
We'll say there's two huge pillars, okay, and he was behind one pillar shooting forward, okay, and the other pillar was behind him. He was shooting forward towards other police officers or whatever he was shooting at, and behind him a police officer, I apologize, I don't mean to call them cops, a police officer had ran up behind him, but also behind the pillar that was probably 6 to 8 feet behind him. Somehow, this guy that reads a bunch of books had the situational awareness while he was shooting forward to know that an officer or any armed person was coming up behind him, right?
Right.
During a gunfight. So as he serpentined walked forward to shoot the cops in front, or whatever he was aiming at in front of him, when he heard the shots or whatever happened behind him, to know that there was a cop, right? Somehow, and this is what I take out of it, somehow he gained the situational awareness to know the cop that came up behind him was right-handed, right? So,
right.
So somehow he knew that he was right-handed and he would have shot from the right side of the pillar. You see the officer, as soon as the officer gets to that pillar, he peeks out the right side of the pillar. But the guy that was shooting knew that he would peek out the right side somehow.
See, now this is not from reading a book.
No, this is definitely not. This is from
physical experiences.
I don't want to say it like that, but it could be true. I'll just say maybe I've been through or know situational awareness.
Well, let's talk about martial arts and the focus on developing your sensory apparatuses and how you have to become aware,
right?
More aware of the things going through your sense.
Okay, in jiu-jitsu, it helps to know what the person's going to do in his next move, right? So eventually in training, you realize that there's 3 things that this person can do right now while he's going to choke me out. And then you also have to think about the 2 or 3 things that you can do to get out of it. But you're putting all this information in your head and you're choosing the best choice as fast as you can, right?
A physical chess player.
Right. So when you're weighing these options in your head, knowing what this person is going to do and what they can do, not necessarily what they are doing, but what they can and will do, or the 1 or 2 or 5 different things that they could do at this point right now. But you also know what you can do to stop that, right?
Right.
But this person had the wherewithal to know exactly what the fuck they should do in that perfect situation. So he backs up to that pillar, all right?
It's military training.
Exactly. It's complete and utter military training. You don't have balls of steel. You don't have nerves of steel like that unless you've been through this before. So he backs up to that pillar, right? And he knows that somehow that cop, because of the sounds he heard, or maybe that cop shot from the right side of that pillar. I didn't see the video too clearly, but he knew that the cop was going to pop out on the right side again. So maybe he saw the cop pop out the first time or whatever. But he literally serpentine walked backwards as he was still looking forward. So he saw everything in front of him and he somehow knew and felt what was behind him, and he knew to go the opposite way that police officer would have went, and he literally point blank shot him. But not only just shot him, when you see the bullets he shot, these bullets not only went through both sides of the police officers, probably wearing vests, probably wearing some sort of vest, okay? Some sort of armor, not necessarily bulletproof, but bullet resistant, because nothing is really bulletproof. So bullet resistant vest, okay? But the bullet that he shot was a completely military grade bullet. It was a armor piercing incendiary bullet, okay? And when you shoot these bullets, they make like almost a firework looking thing as you shoot your target. So it explodes. So you see him shoot this officer, and these fireworks come out the back of the officer. You know, these are not bullets that most people can get a hold of. It's not easy to find all this shit.
Right, and to give the listeners more of a visual, if you've seen this is just a great little clip that I want to paint a picture for the listeners. When you watch the movie Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr., mm-hmm. They have the frames when he's fighting where time slows down,
right?
And he anticipates all the possible scenarios.
Yeah,
that's literally the training high end or special forces military soldiers engage in.
Right. And they only got one person on video that I've seen so far. But they didn't have a face. It wasn't close enough to make out exactly who or what race or what color or what creed this person was from. but you knew that person came from military.
Well, and you do not get that kind of experience or real time. What's the word? He was so fluent in his moves that it had to be from previous combat experience. And I'm not saying combat experience as in he was engaged in real combat, but at least training. Because it was amazing. I mean, you could tell that the cop was an average. He was if anybody was reading only the books,
he was trained.
Had read the books, and he was trained, and he did not have the counterintelligence to react in time to the blitzkrieg from the other end.
And they also say that there was 3 more people on the ground and a fucking sniper. You know that there is literally no non-military organization that can set up or come together this fast to do something of this nature. It has to be, I hate to say it like this, but this has to be another one of these setups. This has to be another one of these movies that people are putting on for the average human being in America to show them that, ooh, guns are bad. You know what I mean? Like
reality television.
I don't craftiest. I have to say this is another staged event.
Well, and see, I think I'll disagree with you in the terms that it's anticipated. I think it's exploited, and I think they expected something like this. And by they, I just mean general intelligent agencies.
Well, and honestly, Texas is the best place to do it because JFK and shit's already happened there, and it's literally like, I want to say this was 10 blocks from the grassy knoll.
Exactly. It was by the Daily Plaza.
It was close. It was the corner of Lamar and Main Street. And I've
to be fair,
been there. I've been the last time I was in Texas, I drove there. I was on that cross section of a street.
Yeah, it's a surreal place.
Dude.
And everything I hear is kind of like a time capsule when you go on that street. It kind of, from the Zapruder film, the grassy knoll is still there. The paper depot.
We don't want to change it. And like you go to that book depository is what it was. You go there and everything's a museum. You literally can walk into the room. They have the bullets placed, the bullet shell casings placed where they were placed.
Well, you know what's crazy? Going back to that, Lee Harvey Oswald, before he was shot by Jack Ruby, who had mafia ties, he said, "I'm a patsy. I'm a patsy." Those were some of his last little tidbits he released to everybody. I'm a patsy.
And I know we said this about the Gulf of Tonkin, right? Tonkin. The
ship sinking of a ship to enter Vietnam.
Right. Well, and who is in charge of that?
Well, that's a different story.
Well, no, it's not, because the same guy that orchestrated the Gulf of Tonkin was in video and pictures literally minutes before the killing of Lee Harvey Oswald.
Well, and if you dig through government declassified papers, we realize that false flags and just military operations that are made to stage an act of terror to engage the general populace with a response, they have declassified documents saying that, yeah, we've thought about that. We've tried to execute some of that. And perhaps, they use those tactics today.
Right. Well, even
what would it benefit? This is where I disagree with you. Unless you're trying to cause a civil war or a race riot. And yes, last podcast I said I was fearful of something like that. Well, I mean, all this does is militarize the police further.
And that's what they're trying to do. This is the agenda of the party right now. But
right.
And if you think about it deeper, and how we're saying all this. Nobody wants to elect Clinton. Nobody wants to elect Trump. What's going to happen if all of this stuff is stopped? There's no such thing as electing a president anymore because the government doesn't want it, and it's just Obama from now on.
Well, and just to add for side notes, gunmen targeted police after this Dallas shooting and inspired other acts of violence in Tennessee, Missouri, Georgia. And the authorities they didn't cover this, but in one case, I believe in Tennessee, a man called in to the 911 operator about a robbery in progress. And when the police showed up, he just started firing at the police.
Yeah. Well, that's also, this was not orchestrated. That was a single person doing what they felt. I don't even want to say it. So that's one single person trying to do what they can do to stand up for whatever they think they should stand up for, right?
Right.
But the media all came to one place. There was nothing else talked about. There maybe two or three, we'll say, for lack of better terms, newspapers or whatever you want to call them, companies of media. That's what they wanted you to see. They wanted you to see Dallas.
Well, we're in this totalitarian culture of fear. We really are. We're living in a culture of fear. And
fear, yeah.
And, also just recently, this happens every now and then, but it's just tying into this general just avalanche of news. Lockdown lifted at the U.S. Capitol. Authorities ordered the U.S. Capitol building and visitor center into a lockdown Friday morning after police spotted what they thought was a weapon inside an employee's backpack, according to the U.S. Capitol Police. Everybody is on edge, and we've been on edge ever since we invented the bomb and World War II ended. We've been on edge ever since the Reichstag fell. We have had a nonstop imperialistic foreign policy mixed with a paradigm of fear. We had the communists, we had the arms race, the Cold War. Now we have the global threat of violence by radicalism.
Yeah.
And maybe you're right. Maybe more militant police is the logical solution. And maybe that is part of the plan, since with paradigms...
Well, that's the first thing they started talking about in Dallas this morning. We need to be more militant.
And then the Democrats on the other side were saying we need more gun control. So it plays into everybody's agenda, if you will. And once again, last podcast, I feel like sometimes I shouldn't say certain things because somehow it reacts to the conscious living universe and it happens. You ever get that weird feeling like something we talk about on the podcast?
It happens every day after we have one.
Somehow something from the podcast, like when I was saying, I hope there isn't more a race incident where police shoot. Well, the day after that, 2 incidences occurred, and then this happened.
Simultaneously.
And I'm not saying, it's just this weird quantum world we live in, I suppose, where maybe the thoughts of everybody collectively is generating the actions. But that's hypothetical and metaphysical. All I'm saying is we're now living in a culture of fear.
Well, we've been living in a culture of fear for so long. This
is a new form. It's a high-tech culture of fear.
Oh, I guess I see what you're saying. Yeah, it is. It's a much more cerebral form too.
And last podcast, I said college campuses. What are they talking about? They're talking about race, gender, and politically correct language. Well, during this fiasco of race baiting and just basically a race war, the guy who shot the officer in Dallas said, "I hate white people." It just
That doesn't mean shit because you're not.
Right. Well, going into this on the gender, new news article came out. Another 10 states moved to sue the Obama administration over bathroom guidance for transgender students. So once again, this is more divide and conquer. I just can't believe it. On every level, we're getting these paradigms.
These bombardments of paradigms.
Right. And the hot spots for 2016. A few podcasts, maybe I say it every now and then, but I feel like a couple podcasts ago, I really tried to hit home with, I kept saying 2016 is going to change the world. I still believe that. Like, ever since the end of 2015, I've had the feeling that 2016, based on just quantifiable statistics and areas of science and news, all the data suggests that 2016 is going to be one hell of a ride, because we have the Brazil Olympics coming up. Folks, we still have the political conventions. Can you imagine? Those are coming up on the 18th. And this is fresh in the mind of the masses.
Political conventions, we have debates, we have...
And if you really follow this race baiting and this just... People want this race war. They keep adding fuel through social media. Remember Ferguson?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That was like the start. That was like the match that really started the Black Lives Matter stuff and really got it going.
It lit the fuse.
And that feels like a decade ago with all this news moving so fast.
It's all day, every day. It's literally like
and people forget about how that wasn't that long ago. And so if you really stretch it out and look at the news over the last 3 years, 2016 has so many terrible aspects because the conventions are coming up. You have the Brazil on the brink of financial collapse is going to host a worldwide Olympics, and it's a Zika hotspot. You have
they overthrew their government.
North Korea has missiles. We just made a deal with Iran so they can have missiles.
What?
Yeah, we did that a while ago. I'm just saying, it's like whatever is going on, there's a quickening. I don't know what else to call it. 2016 is a quickening.
It's literally, we are a worldwide city. We are a worldwide town that is being...
I mean, Brexit just happened, and no one, like, after Hillary and Orlando and all this stuff, I guess Brexit was after Orlando, wasn't it? So this is what I'm getting at. There's too many things. I can't even keep the timeline straight.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough right now. And that's exactly what we're feeding into it still. Regardless of how we see things, we're still feeding into it. We're still being we're still getting spoon-fed this bullshit, and we're eating it.
Well, and how can we have clear and articulate thoughts when I feel like I could sit for 12 hours trying to sort through this and be more lost at the end of all of my investigations?
You know, I found this to be true all day today. Okay, I've seen the videos. I've weighed the good, the bad. I've
and the ugly.
It just you people. We keep thinking. We keep wondering what's next, and
I can't stop thinking.
But that's what gets us. It's we're wondering what's next rather than what's going on in front of us. You know, we can't. But there's so much. It's a sensory overload, and it's hard to focus on one thing. What's going on? So we start to shut ourselves out. We start to get so angry that we don't even want to process the information anymore.
Oh, and we don't process the information because, that's what when I keep saying they, I just think there's a general consensus amongst the political establishment that if we can shut down dialogue, more violence will happen. You know what I mean? If we didn't, for instance, go on air tonight because we were overwhelmed and depressed,
we couldn't. We can't not go on air. We can't not talk about this.
That would be feeding into some of the problems.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I got off work late. I'm glad that you still wanted to stay up and wanted to talk about this, because we have to get this not just off our chest, but out there into the ether.
Well, it's a heavy weight.
It's a big weight, and I'm trying to do push-ups, and I could only do 2 because it weighed on me so heavily.
And not only in the culture sense do we have a quickening. A little bit ago, I don't know which podcast. Remember when I was telling you, just based off of some of my research and hearsay, I said quantum computers are going to break standard encryption?
Right.
Well, just the other day, Google kind of leaked some news. Google tests new crypto in Chrome to fend off quantum attacks. The concern? Hackers and intelligence agencies could use advanced quantum attacks to crack current encryption techniques and learn, anything they want. Now Google is starting the slow, hard work of preparing for that future, beginning with a web browser designed to keep your secrets, even when they are attacked by a quantum computer more powerful than any the world has seen. So we're already there. Like, I was talking about that as if, one day, dude, they're going to be preparing for quantum. We're already there.
Yeah.
That's how fast we're moving.
We know this.
And, in the back of my mind, I always wonder if some of the powerful agencies, perhaps they already have quantum computers and they already are breaking all of the encryption and gathering everything. But that's a different story. Point is, Google, one of the largest IT companies in the world, they are investing in new encryption to fend off attacks from quantum computers.
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, I don't even... I still can't get off of the bullshit, dude.
I know, and it's hard, but the science, once again, it's like a magician. While we're focused on that news story that's overwhelming us,
it's misdirection.
You have crazy scientific progression over on the other side.
And there's so much going on in the science realm right now.
Right. We're moving so fast. I mean, I heard stem cell researchers just blatantly say that they cannot disclose some of the research to the public because the public cannot understand it and they will not pay attention to it.
But they also can't afford it. Yeah.
And they cannot afford it. Did you hear about this? CERN opens a port. Okay, back in May, there was a YouTuber who was covering the Large Hadron Collider because so many pseudoscientists on YouTube or journalists, they like to cover CERN because it's so mysterious. It has so much mystique. It's this circle of Babel, if you will, where all these countries are uniting and investing in the scientific breakthroughs of tomorrow. Well, anyways, the journalist through YouTube, it was like BP Earthwatch or something. Maybe it's a fringe conspiracy theorist, so nobody paid attention. Said that back in May, there was some type of electrical phenomenon above CERN, and nobody paid attention to it. Well, just recently, a video claims 2 images showing cloud and light over the LHC at Geneva on the French and Swiss border were taken on June 24th, the same day CERN scientists began a new awake experiment to change the way it smashes particles together. The film, entitled "What Portal Did CERN Open Now?", had strange clouds hover above the Large Hadron Collider. It was made by some YouTube, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, it was conspiracy theory channel.
This is... okay, can I...
But here's the thing. The European Organization for Nuclear Research investigated these claims, and the two images had been forensically researched and found to be genuine and not edited.
Right. Well, what it looks like. So if you've ever seen a volcano erupt at night, you get these crazy electrical storms from all the atoms and all the particles floating in the air that cause friction, right?
Okay.
Well, this picture is
Looks
literally
like that.
it's literally that without the volcano. But it looks like everything is coming from CERN and then extending upwards, and it's like a volcano.
And I don't have a master's degree in electrical engineering, but they're using, what is it, teravolts? Some type of absurd amount of energy to collide
It's absurd.
these particles.
It's actually they're actually not using all that much energy. It's just the fact that they keep it's in a big circle for a reason. It's because they keep every time these atoms or whatever keep going around.
Very concentrated.
Yeah, they keep going around in this circle, but every time it's like we'll say it's like when you go bowling, okay, and you throw the ball you hit the pins, and then it's propelled forward by the machine that pushes it forward, right?
Right.
Well, every time these atoms or whatever get pushed around, it gets pushed forward faster and faster and faster and faster.
Well,
Yeah.
I think about it as when you see lightning strike, and then if you count the seconds, you can hear the thunder.
Yeah, and how far away it is.
Is that what's happening here? Kind of a non-local reaction to the underground Large Hadron Collider?
No, because it's absolutely local. If it's 100% right above CERN.
But what's the tie? What's going through the ground to hit the atmosphere?
Okay,
That's
so
why I'm saying it's non-local.
When you're using so much energy and you're creating quirks and you're finding these
Tetraquarks.
well they're so when we grew up we always thought there was atoms, protons, and atoms that were made up of protons, neutrons, and electrons, right?
Right.
But what we never stopped to think about is what are those atoms or those protons, neutrons, and electrons? What are those made up of?
Right. Well, we covered this.
Well, they are. Yes. So we'll go past this and we'll say they're called quarks. They're all signified by Greek letters. There's I want to say there's at least 26 right now that we think to be in existence. Okay, and they keep finding more. But when we keep making black holes or trying to make a black hole, when energy like this is in space, what happens? Crazy shit around it. Nebulas start to form, or galaxies start to get eaten by these black holes. If we make a miniature black hole, how much mass and how much shit is being pushed out in every way, and literally every way that it can be pushed out? And what's going to happen when all this energy is just pushed aside?
And did you hear about how some scientists, not only do they worry about the amount of energy used in the collision, but they worry about a delayed reaction? Whereas to say, they do these experiments, but we will not actually have a black hole or a nebula form for another 1,000 years.
I haven't read on that. I haven't, repercussions, man. You know what I mean?
Well, it's crazy to think that we, once again, I guess modern man has this psychosis where we do not sit and digest anything anymore. We just eat.
Well, we get to see these huge fucking numbers, like $1 trillion deficits, or multi-quarks,
we crunch and we munch,
and quirks in different dimensions, and we start to just get, again, it's an overload. It's an overload of information. But we don't stop and think what that shit really is. We just go like, whoa, that's some crazy shit, man. Let's go back to Yahoo. You know what I mean? Like,
right. It becomes entertainment for most people.
Right. It just pushes people away. But what is really going on is you're literally forming mini nebulas or mini black holes on Earth. What's the byproduct of that?
Well, and how can you diffuse a problem if it's so compartmentalized?
And but you see it as such a small problem right now because they're just fucking with atoms, right? And protons.
China's going to be doing the same thing soon.
We're trying to push for being able to build mass and put mass onto anything. So we'll build anything from this, basically, life forms and metals and all sort. We could probably they have so much information that we can't even know about. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
Unbelievable right now.
Well, and going back to when we were talking about nudging and behavioral reconfigurations through the computer, when a human interacts with a computer, can his behavior be nudged or manipulated? I was talking with Sam about that, and he was talking about everything still is prompt and command. But, you know, the more I dig into artificial intelligence, he's 100% wrong.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he's a little younger than we are, and he hasn't had the time to be able to.
Well, here's the thing. We have neural networks that deep learn and they feel out. Like if you think of, have you ever seen a picture of the internet blown up and it kind of looks like a universe with all of its little strings connecting and they're all lit up, and it's like the brain when it's firing with electricity.
Yeah.
Except for externalized. Well, we have neural networks that are built to mimic the human brain, and they're artificial intelligent machines that deep learn different orifices of the internet, different limbs of the internet. They tap into entire networks, and then they store that information like a human brain, and then they break it down and reconstruct it and make brand new cognitive patterns and new associations through the neural networking. So when you let an artificial intelligence go on YouTube, it can potentially be in the comment section and interact with a real human. Now, I got to ask Sam next time we have him on, how is that prompt and command? Because once you program the deep learning AI and they're interacting through a neural network interface, they build new cognitive patterns that are not even programmed.
This is exactly what artificial intelligence is supposed to do.
Exactly. So, yeah, I take back almost all of my my argument, and I'm going to resituate with behavioral manipulation or modification is real, and we do interact with algorithms and AI every day. And yes, they can nudge humans into certain perceptions and behaviors.
Just think of it as surfing the web or being on Facebook every day.
Right.
I mean, that's it. It doesn't necessarily have to even push its own information out there. It just has to show you the information it wants to show you.
Did I ever tell you back in the day when I had a MySpace out of all things?
Ooh, from MySpace to my place.
And then I went on Amazon when it was emerging. And then I had a Facebook for a little bit. Well, I noticed back then that my MySpace, my Google searches, my Facebook searches, and my Amazon searches were all communicating.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't give it permission to do that. But in the user agreements, by using these, this is how it is kind of feudal serfdom.
But they're all intertwined.
Right. You use the king's land. So it's a feudal system. You get it for free, but you have to agree to the terms and conditions. So I was using the king's land. I was using Zuckerberg's land, but his land was exploiting me. Yep. So I came to terms with that a while ago, and that's why I like to make people, I want to say, look, these machines, they data mine, and these algorithms are getting more and more sophisticated. So just be careful. Don't always fall for everything on the internet, you know? And it's amazing how much the Google can compile when it comes to your data. I think they now have a My Activities page or something where the Google you can access some of the data logs that Google collects on you. You can just review it yourself now. But the internal systems, so amazing. I mean, can you imagine how sophisticated it actually is to record and track everything you're interested in Amazon and then target you while you're on Facebook to nudge you into buying that product that you didn't buy when you were on Amazon. But now it tells you, hey, it's 10% off. We know you were looking at it. Come on, just buy it. I mean, that's basic nudging.
Yeah. Yep.
It just amazes me. And, you know, I'm always keeping tabs on IARPA and DARPA. They're always doing interesting things. And some of this stuff is just, it's so fantastic. That's why I like to keep up with it. I'm not looking at it as, oh, they're going to take over the world. It's just amazing. It really is amazing what we're doing. I mean, neural interfaces, and I guess I think it was DARPA. They're hosting a contest to allow independent programmers to put in their artificial hacker machines, and they're going to have a Tron-like competition. And whatever hackbot or hack AI hacks the best gets money from DARPA and maybe even like some type of contract. I don't know. But they do stuff like that. Or back when I forget who it was. I think it was DARPA when they were working with Boston Dynamics, which that contract expired. I think Google bought Boston Dynamics, and they were building like deer-like robots that could lug around different, lug around all the stuff soldiers need.
Yeah.
And they didn't give them the contract because the robot wasn't quiet enough. They want him more silent. But that thing was amazing. It could pull a human on a sled. It could be kicked and it wouldn't fall over. They had a cheetah that could run on a treadmill and jump over hurdles. I mean, we're talking about basic principles being established. In 20 years, we're going to have probably automated security guards. We're going to have robot security guards in malls in the next 20 years.
You don't know already that Silicon Valley has hundreds of drones that...
Oh, the little Roombas?
No, they're huge. They're human-sized drones that walk around and patrol all of Silicon Valley.
See, that's just it. Well, we squabble and we engage in this petty, you're black, you're white, you're Democrat, you're a Republican.
It's all the same shit.
The scientific dictatorship is going to envelop us.
So again, this is where people would shut down and say, I'm just tired of fucking talking about it.
Right. But I mean, I've become somewhat immune to all of the information overload, but
dude, I wear my feelings on my sleeve. You know, I wear my emotions on my sleeve.
In private, I still cry. I still cry with certain videos. Like, I still get emotional when I watch certain movies. But
right.
The other night, when I watched that, I've never seen anything so raw. And I don't go and look because I'm not a sadistic person. I do not go and look.
The Falcon Heights shooting?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do not go and look for sadistic material to get off on. I saw this on the news because it forced it on me. It just was like, hey, you want to watch this? Too bad. Boom. And I was like, Jesus, that was super emotional. Well, later that night, I went on and YouTubed, because I heard people went to protest at the governor's mansion.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched the bits and pieces of that shooting, and then I saw people go and bang on the governor's gate and try to get his attention, and I kind of shut down and shed a few tears because it's too real. It's too much. It really hits you. It really hits you.
This is where we have to fucking stand up, though. This is where we have to realize that we as people, we as in America, we literally can stand up. We can change this, but everybody says that we don't have the power to do so, and the government's bigger than us, and blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. And what I saw...
The government should work for us. They should not be controlling us.
Well, and what I saw, though, what really pulled at my heartstrings, in that video, too, like, I just had to pause it.
Did you see how many people that guy's mother had behind her?
Yeah.
I mean, how many races and creeds and how many people?
It overwhelms me. When I see human passion like that, it overwhelms me emotionally. Like, I'll get emotional if I go and listen to some motivational speaker that has so much fervor, because I love to see that human spirit animated. I love to see the animated action of the human spirit. And when I watched them go to the governor, what I saw in that is I thought people are still civilized enough to go through the proper channels. They're grieving and they're angry, but they're still civilized enough to go to the governor.
Yep.
And
well, but
this is right. What they don't want. That, like, the people who want chaos, they don't want to see that. They'd rather see the Dallas situation. They'd rather see people take matters into their own hands and behave irrationally.
Well, this isn't just a quickening for them. It's a quickening for us. Exactly. It gives us it gives us purpose. More purpose. It shows us more purpose. Not gives us, but shows us exactly what we should be doing and how we have to do it. But nobody can do it. Nobody wants to stand up for what we should be doing. Nobody wants to stand up for us because they don't think we can.
Right. And I just think I
think we have to start a movement. Besides just our little podcast and what we have planned on the future, we need to have more of a future. We need to start something that has to do with spreading.
Well, I like to exercise pacifism and love, because without love, there's only death and apathy, and death and apathy, they lead to nothing. Right. And if you want to worship nothing, well, go for it. Why don't you hang yourself right now if you're so obsessed with death and nothing, and you're so cynical? People who are so cynical, if they're so cynical, why don't they go and eat their own cynicism? Why don't they take some cyanide and enjoy a dose of cynicism?
That's pretty good.
That's finger looking good. But you won't be able to say that, and you won't be able to appreciate how great life is and the pleasure of the sensual experience of human life, because you are now dead. So that's my problem. People need to not be bitter and angry, and they need to do exactly what you were saying. Turn towards a more loving, caring attitude or perspective.
Again, we have to realize that it's not about a race. This is one race. We're the human race, okay? We all have to stick together, and even okay, cops are just cops, but they're just people too most of the time. They're 90%, I shouldn't even say a number. Most of them are just people also, and they're scared too. So when they pull over a person, they're scared just as bad as you are, like a spider. They're probably more scared of you than you are of them, but they have to take action because that's what they have to do.
Yeah, and you know how disgusted I was do you remember right after the Ferguson, Missouri incident, Mr. Dr. Dre, fuck the police and whatnot. You know what he did? He remember he was going to release Detox? It was like 10 years in the making, Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
Instead of releasing that, he made a police hate documentary called Straight Outta Compton right during the time so he could capitalize on this Ferguson, Missouri stuff, he released it right after so he could make as much money as possible. And I thought, you scumbag, how dare you try to fuel the fire? Because that perspective is all about ignorance.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Again, I don't like the word ignorance, but it does apply in some certain situations.
You know, blaring F the police, that's just a stupid thing to do. We should really try to understand each other. And before I talked about the trauma-based mind control with the media and how it seemingly is doing just that on a mass scale, I want an artist of considerable talent to paint me this portrait. See, I always have like great ideas for paintings, but I have to get into painting. In fact, quote me on this. 30 years down the road, if I'm not an oil painter, just hit me in the face and be like, why aren't you an oil painter, man? You told me to hit, and I'll be okay with that.
Are we going to have oil in 30 years? That was a joke. That was me trying to make light of a topic.
Well, I want to paint a picture of a black man in a vehicle with the cop, like the scene out of that live stream video, right?
God, wasn't that fucked up, dude?
And I want that white cop to be pointing his gun at the black man.
Asian, to be honest.
And I want him to be like shot. But then in the painting, I want almost a ghostly like figure coming out of his body and a ghostly like figure coming out of the white police officer's body. And I want those ghostly like figures to be children, and they're hugging each other.
I mean,
because to me, people have to remember that all these humans were once innocent children.
Yeah, it's such a disconnect right now. We know that all these people can experience the feeling of love, and all we're portraying is the hate,
right?
Okay? And so that's kind of a perfect picture.
Because I want the inner child that you cannot see, the real human in them, to be coming out in a ghost-like figure hugging, and then I want that to be superimposed against the propaganda and the roles they play in society.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you strip away the uniform and you strip away the brand name shirts and you strip away all of their clothes, they're just men. They're men, and they were once children, and somebody taught them, or they learned how to be what they are in that situation.
Hate is a taught or a learned topic or subject. We don't grow up with hate in our blood.
Right.
I don't know. And especially me, I can't hate anything because I don't have a hate bone in me. All I see is I try to put as much light on any topic as I can. Sometimes it's me kind of being clouded, but at the same time, that's how I have to see things, because positivity is the only thing that makes light. I don't like darkness. I'm not scared of the dark. Granted, I've been raised in the dark, but I like the light.
Was that a quote from Bane?
No, that wasn't, but I did take a pause because I realized it could have been taken as a Batman quote.
Am I Bane? No. But I understand it.
Sorry, that was my Bane.
Bruce, you have many things to learn. No, I think when you hear people say...
You were really born at it.
When you hear people say you got to embrace the dark side, why don't people ever say you got to embrace the light side? It's like people think it's edgy and cool to be sad and sadistic.
That's what we are now too, and that's why everybody wants to cheat on their spouse, and that's why everybody wants to, do all this negative bullshit, is because I don't know how it got to be cool to be bad. Like, it seems cool and edgy, but we all know it's terrible. It's fucking terrible.
Well, and I look back too on some of the programming in like video games, how the culture of the new kid growing up is to just speak these terrible things through a mic to another human being, but he's dehumanized because he can't see them. Like, I've heard little kids on a Call of Duty game that's training them to have like immediate reactions with their eyes and their hands, the basic sensory development of a soldier. I hear them say, I'm talking about like 13-year-old kids, I just raped you.
Yeah.
And it's like, they don't even understand how terrible that really is. And
No,
it's
you're
when
right.
you twist the language and you redefine it like that, it's thoroughly disgusting. Like a culture of hate. It really is a culture of hate. And I'm not going to dog on video games the rest of the podcast, but I'm saying that these new media environments allow kids to treat other kids as if they weren't human because it's through the screen.
Right.
I mean, look at the drone operators. Have you heard that some drone operators have nightmares in thermal vision, in the drone vision?
Not only that, but they know what they're doing. They know exactly what they have to do, and then it affects them later. It doesn't affect them right away because that's their job, but at the same, well, sometimes I guess it does affect them right away. But
A delayed detonation in their subconscious or something.
well, again, it's like a snowball or a it builds.
Right.
I mean, think about it. You know, you're about to push a button. You're not playing a video game. Granted, it looks like a video game, but could you imagine dreaming in thermal vision?
Right. And, folks like Ray Kurzweil and people over at Google are predicting realistic, fully immersive virtual reality by 2030. And can you imagine when part of the education of growing up is to prepare to be a drone pilot?
What if you can quote unquote go to school by putting on your headset?
Right. I don't even know. In fact, I wrote a short story called Physiodroid talking about that. And, you don't even have an identity at that point. You're just a part of the machine.
But you think you have your new identity though.
Right.
You think it's a new you because you can act like this to all these people. But they're doing this. They're doing the same thing. It's just like what we were saying. What Facebook was. It's a snapshot of the good, not the bad. Only the
right.
good.
And a lot of people are becoming surrogates of other people's ideas and actions.
Right.
And I think that's one thing this podcast drives home. Hammers into the listener's head. We just need to stop, reflect, consciously decide if this is what we want to represent us as a human species, and then move forward with peaceful resolutions and loving dialogue.
I mean, love, dude. I mean, we're talking to me and you are dudes, and we're talking to each other, and we say love, but it's not stupid, man. It's the only way. It's the smartest thing to do right now is to love the person next to you because they can do the same. Actions speak louder than words, and actions are what we have to take right now.
Well, it reminds me, too, of like all the real psychopaths out there, the people who think it's cool to get away with crimes and, I screwed that guy out of this, and boy, is that guy stupid. And they think they're smarter. I may have mentioned this to you, but I don't think we've ever aired it for listeners. They think that they're more intelligent, and they think it's a symptom of intelligence when they can deceive their fellow man. Right. But what they don't understand is generally good people do not think like that. So the reason why evil people can get away with evil things, it's because the generally good people are not trying to plot and deceive their neighbor. You dumbass. All these evil people who think they're so smart and intelligent getting away with crimes. Well, it's because your neighbor isn't plotting against you 24/7, you psychopath.
Right. It's again, it's a love-hate. I'm all right. Can we? I hate to say this, and I hate to change topics or try to change topics, but we need to stick with this love thing. I mean, we can't keep putting this negative shit out there, because it really is. It's breeding negativity in everybody that's listening. It's breeding negativity in me right now, and I'm sure you're feeling negativity surging through your veins.
Yeah, I'm a little warm.
So what we have to do again is know that.
Take deep breaths.
Please just breathe and
through the nose.
And know that ignorance it shouldn't be called ignorance. All right. People are gonna do what they're gonna do, yes. But if we do our own style of nudging, but we do it for the positive instead of the negative bullshit that drives so many people, show people what this positivity can do for everybody, rather than what this negativity does for some people.
Right, and the great part about recording something like this, and I listened to our last podcast, that beginning song, the Homemade Time Machine.
Yeah.
This really is a time machine, because years from now, hopefully, if everything's intact, server-wise, account-wise, the data is still in the pool, in the new sphere, people can reflect on this even when we're gone.
You know, it'd be great is if they laugh at us and be like, "God, it's all so positive anyway. I don't understand why you guys are talking like this 20 years from now."
Well, I just like knowing that, like a book, it's going to influence somebody down the road. And hopefully it's in a positive and well-meaning way, that they can take something from our radio show and help them conquer something negative in their life.
Right. And if you can't do it by yourself, ask for help. I'm sure if you spread that positivity, even though it might be a negative situation, if you do it in a positive way, you're definitely going to get the help you need, regardless of what kind of help it is that you need. People will scratch your back if you scratch theirs.
And once again, if you're fed up with all the human invented drama, the invented purpose we continuously create for ourselves to live fulfilling lives, just go take a walk in nature.
And not a walk on your fucking Pokemon Go game. Don't put that shit down. Don't play that Pokemon bullshit.
Go and look.
That's a huge thing right now, too. I'm sorry.
The smartphone. Just turn it off and go out there and go and look what made what humans are today. Go and look at the environment we conquered.
Dude,
and then take the time to consider that maybe we can conquer any other challenge that we are faced with, because our ancestors brought us to this point, and we're not going to drop the baton. We're going to continue to expand.
I'm going to raise that fucking baton so high.
It's going to be a torch, man. It's going to be a beacon of light.
That's right. I mean, we have to keep positivity breeding. We can't.
A Promethean beacon of light, not a Luciferian beacon of light.
Right, Promethean.
Because we need love and intelligence to prosper in the cosmos.
You know what would really make me happy right now?
Klondike bar?
Oh, what
would you eat for a Klondike bar? I don't think I've ever asked you.
I mean, that's a question that that has been proposed to me many a times, especially in the last, we'll say, 6 months. And a lot of the times I say I wouldn't even have a Klondike bar. But back in the day, I asked a random chick at the grocery store, if you had a Klondike bar in your hand right now, what kind would you have? She told me Oreo, so I bought the Oreo ones. They're good.
Are they really?
They're so delicious.
I think I had like a Butterfinger one once.
Ooh, that sounds pretty bomb. I can't even think about sugar right now. It's terrible. It's so good.
It is really good.
It's so good.
Yeah, and speaking of positive things, my tomatoes now are finally blossoming. They have about a 72-day harvest period, so I probably won't have tomatoes until mid-August, late August.
That's cool. The 20th of July, I get to go to a buddy's house that works at the club with me. You know him. His name is Timothy.
Oh, I know.
We're going to have a canning party and a pickling party. So we're gonna raid his garden. His vow at the beginning of the year when he planted all this stuff is he doesn't want to have a single thing go bad in his garden, right?
That's the right attitude.
Yeah. So within the next 2 weeks, we are going to basically pick everything and can it. Pickles and all sorts of, pickling and canning, and dude, it's going to be awesome. We're going to make sauces and it's going to be beautiful.
That sounds fantastic because we like to We like to can our tomatoes and pickle our cucumbers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always just a rewarding experience.
It's kind of stupid when you're doing it, but you realize like you're feeding yourself and your family. You're keeping everything going. And you can do it indefinitely if you can just keep doing it yourself.
Right, and just how you can be self-sufficient if you just put your mind and do
Effort.
the work. Put your mind to it and do the work.
There's effort. There's a lot of effort involved, but that effort pays off in droves. You know what I mean?
Right. Treasure trove, man.
It's beautiful.
And I always think it's crazy because, I planted little seeds at the beginning of the year, and now I have about 4.5 foot tomato plants. It's nature itself is a miraculous thing.
Right. It very much, yeah, for sure. So, I have to start we have to start ending our podcast this evening.
Right, we got all worked up.
We have to,
but I think it was appropriate. I think it was appropriate to get worked up.
So. And, we'll probably be worked up for the next 2 hours of the night, and we won't be able to sleep for a while.
Well, and I know that journalists, they're trained, especially news anchors, they're trained not to have a position, an opinion, and they're not supposed to make moral judgments. But how can they sit there? This is what's so disheartening, and this is part of the reason why we're so disconnected. The people feeding us the stuff we eat visually or through audio, they're doing it with no emotion. Most of the time, the newscasters, they don't get worked up. They don't think it's an appropriate response to feel because they're professionals.
They're reading a teleprompter.
Exactly.
It's all just news. They're basically, we are their, how do I put this? We are their product. Okay, so they have to advertise their product, and again, we are their product. So the more that we do, the more product they have.
Human capital.
It's terrible. It's fucking terrible.
But I just wish news anchors would one day just step out of that just fake, artificial aesthetic appearance and delivery. I wish they would just sidestep it once. And once in a while they do, and they usually get fired. But if they would collectively be like, you know what? I'm not going to be completely full of shit today. And I'm going to be real with you. I don't even understand why that's a different subject. We'll wind down this podcast because I feel like we could go and go. I'm
gonna read a quote, and it's from Eli Wetzel. He was born in Romania. He was an American Jewish writer, professor, a political activist. I think he won a Nobel Prize. We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere. When human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy, national borders and sensitivities become irrelevant. Whether men and women are persecuted because of their race, religion, or political views, that place must, at the moment, become the center of the universe.
That was nice.
I believe it's a perfect quote to sum up a lot of what we were talking about tonight. But again, it all comes with being studious, being learning and knowing and or I shouldn't say knowing because we don't know. So inform yourself.
I have some quotes to complement those quotes by an existential psychologist named Rollo May.
Ooh.
And the top 3 quotes, if you bring his name up, and they're perfect for this discussion. The first one is, the opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it is conformity. The second one is, communication leads to community, that is, to understanding, intimacy, and mutual valuing. And then the very last one, to cap it off, hate is not the opposite of love, apathy is.
Right.
And that's just it. If you're indifferent about everything and you don't have an opinion, just like the newscasters,
maybe
you're apathetic.
Maybe you have a problem.
Right. And yeah, it's a good point, you know.
But you have to stand back and you have to assess yourself too. You can't just judge everything else around you without judging yourself. I honestly I judge myself every day. I push myself and I make myself better because that's what we should be doing. And it's not because of that, but I feel like we have to get better every day. We have to learn something every day. We have to know new things. We have to see different perspectives every day and put ourselves in other people's shoes every day because you're not the center of the universe.
Right. And that's solipsism, if anybody wanted to know. Solipsism is the belief that you have a subjective perception and everybody has a subjective perception and you are the center of your universe.
Right.
And that's a trap. And who was the author again, just for the listeners to
Eli Wetzel.
Okay. Nice. Did he write any books or
to be honest, the number is 57.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well read, well accomplished.
And a lot of his things are I think he even wrote Twilight. I could be wrong. I don't know for sure. But it's existentialism. It's seeing it's other points of view but coming back to your own. But again, it takes coming back to your own and then realizing what other things are.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And this Rollo May, he's written several books, but the one that I want to read, well, 2. He has The Courage to Create, and he also has Love and Will. And 2 more quotes from him. It's perfect for this. It is an ironic habit of human beings to run faster when they have lost their way. And then the second one. Many people suffer from the fear of finding oneself alone, and so they do not find themselves at all.
Yeah, that's great. These are great quotes because they're so deep and they're so full of hidden meaning.
Right. They're rich.
Yeah, but again, it takes somebody to look inside themselves and then see what's around them and judge or weigh everything around them. You can't just read some of these things and just say, "Oh, that's a good quote."
No, you need to have eyes that see and ears that hear.
Right. This beautiful. Beautiful. So, after these last 48 hours, we have to wind down and say, be happy, be vigilant, but not over vigilant. Don't let your ego get in the way of a choice you have to make in your life. Just know that you can do right, and wrong is not the right way.
Right.
So-
We shall overcome. That's just going in my head right now.
I don't even know that song, but I like it. So everybody, thanks for listening tonight. I know all our hearts are heavy. Lots of shit's going on right now. Thank you to the Dallas Police Department for, doing what they did and taking control, because not a lot of places, not a lot of people could do this.
Right.
And I guess every police officer out there, regardless if you are good or bad, be better. Be better than the person next to you. Be a picture, or be
an example, a role model.
Thank you. Be an example or a role model, but show everybody that you can do better, and so can they. And I'm not just talking to police officers. I'm talking about people in their everyday lives.
Before you change the world, change yourself.
Right. But we have to start changing the bullshit to positive. It has to start somewhere. And it sucks that it takes this multiverse of violence to do this, but I think it's definitely, like we said, it's the quickening, but we don't have to let it bring us down. We can have a positive outlook on it, regardless of how many lives were lost or what bullshit happened. So thank you again for listening tonight.
And if you like the message here, feel free to share. We like to get a few more listeners, and it gets us excited to create content, but we'll be doing this regardless. Even if we don't have that many listeners or followers or tweeters or twatters or whatever the hell it is, we'll still be doing it because we enjoy doing this.
We enjoy it, and this is what we feel like we should be doing. Not many people want to put their words out there or their views, because a lot of people have these fucked up views that people shouldn't have.
That or anxiety takes hold, and they think, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't be talking.
This is exactly what we were saying earlier. But again, we'll talk about that later. Everybody, we love you. Spread that love. Get rid of that hate.
And may your wishful thoughts prosper.
Mr. Hawkins, I can't wait to have your beautiful tomatoes in my mouth.
I will save probably some fresh ones and possibly give you a canned jar.
Delicious. I would make the salsa with them.
That would be excellent.
It would be excellent. All right, everybody. Thank you again for listening tonight. This has been the episode number 15 of the Auditory Osmosis. So, Mr. Hawkins, you, sir, have a good night. I'm glad you didn't make a mess in the studio, though. There was no chips.
I'm refraining from, I'm cutting back on the chips, switching to fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, I mean, I did hang up that helmet you gave me.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually, you probably can't. I have to.
Surplus?
Yeah, I have to move the tree. Do you see it behind the tree behind me?
Oh, yeah. You even got the ace card, Vietnam style. Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It's so sweet. It's so sweet.
I'm going to lose tablets for food.
All right, man. Let's get out of here.
UFC 200, folks, tomorrow.
Oh, it's going to be great. We're going to have a pre-show tomorrow night. Tomorrow afternoon. Probably around 6-ish, maybe a little after that. But Daniel Cormier is fighting again.
Nice.
It's not John Jones. It's Anderson Silva. Do you remember the first time we ever went out and watched a fight, Mr. Hawkins?
It was at Buffalo Wild Wings.
It
on
was.
A summer night.
And it was, the headline was Anderson Spider Silva And shoot, I can't remember his name right now. I'm just so heated. I'm still so I'm still so heated. I'm gonna have to write like a story tonight or something just to get this stuff like a little bit out of my head to be able to sleep. Anyway, everybody, thank you again. Have a good evening.
Stay cool, stay safe.
Mr. Hawkins, enjoy the evening. Do something positive tonight. I know it's pretty late, but spread that positivity and push that anger under your foot and stomp the shit out of it and smack it back, like grind it back and forth as if you're putting out a cigarette with your foot.
Spread light to all corners of the dark galaxy. Good night and good luck.
Good night.